Snow from the rooftop garden bit into my bare feet as I stared at the 2 pink lines. 10 years of doctors, prayers, and a husband who divorced me for being useless. And now, 8 weeks after I finally stopped trying, my body whispered the one word I had buried: pregnant. My hand shook so badly the little stick blurred. I blinked hard, once, twice. The lines stayed. The glass door behind me slid open with a soft hiss. Cool air brushed my neck, stirring the loose curls that had slipped from my bun. Elaris, Thaejin's voice wrapped around my name, low and steady. Why are you crying? Because the baby growing inside me belonged to a man I had spent exactly 3 unforgettable weeks with, a venture capitalist with secrets in his eyes and scars on his knuckles. A man who had shown me what it meant to be wanted, not needed. A man who was standing behind me right now, about to learn he was going to be a father, and I had no idea if that would make him run or stay. Chapter 2. The signature. 2 months earlier, the pen dug into the thin blue line next to my name. Sign here, Miss Nyambe. The clerk's tone had the flat efficiency of a woman who had watched too many marriages end to care about one more. I signed. The paper trembled beneath my hand, but my signature came out neat, the way it always had on clinic forms and consent waivers and pharmacy slips. A decade of infertility paperwork had trained my fingers well. Across the desk, Kovrin didn't look up from his phone. His jaw flexed, his thumb flicked. The glow from the screen carved his cheekbones into sharp planes. The dark suit he wore for campaign events sat on his shoulders like armor. Once, that sight had made me proud. Today, it only made my throat feel dry. That's everything, the clerk said. The decree will be finalized in 7 days. 7 days until 10 years dissolved into legal nothing. Kovrin stood and buttoned his jacket. His mother rose beside him, a graceful swirl of pearls and disapproval. She adjusted her hat and gave me the same assessing look she used for caterers. A fresh start is best, Elaris, she said, for everyone. Translation: for my son, for his political future, for the fertile woman he'll marry next. Outside their black car waited. A photographer stood across the street, camera ready. When Kovrin slid his hand into his mother's arm, they posed with practiced ease. I stepped aside, out of the frame, always out of the frame. The car pulled away, exhaust curled in the chilly air, wrapping briefly around my legs before vanishing. I stood on the courthouse steps with my signed copy of the divorce decree and a canvas tote bag containing a wilting fern, my phone, and half a protein bar. 10 years, reduced to a handful of paper and a plant I'd forgotten to water. My phone buzzed. Zaza, my cousin. How did it go? We're still crashing his celebration tonight, right? The Meridian Hotel. Of course. Only the most expensive venue would be worthy of Councilman Hale's amicable parting announcement. I stared at my bare ring finger, at the pale circle of skin. Fine. 1 drink. If I hate it, I'm leaving. Zaza replied with emojis and a time. Maybe I needed to see him happy with someone else. Maybe I needed proof that this was really over, that I could stand in a room where people whispered Barren and not shatter into pieces. Or maybe I was a masochist. Chapter 3. The Stranger. The Meridian glittered like a jewel box. Zaza found me near the entrance, wearing crimson, and the confidence of a woman who'd never apologize for taking up space. She whistled when she saw me in my pastel blue dress. Look at you, she said, looping her arm through mine. We're going to cause trouble. 1 drink, I reminded her. I mean it. Inside, the ballroom doors stood open. Music flowed out, smooth, expensive jazz. guests in evening wear clustered in conversational knots, champagne flutes catching the light. I felt eyes turn toward me, a glance, a whisper, the way someone's smile thinned at the edges. Is that her? The Barren one? The word burrowed into my chest, familiar and sharp. Poor thing! But he had to think of his future. A man like that needs heirs. My grip tightened around my champagne flute. Ignore them, Zaza murmured, their background noise. A woman approached, late 20s, glossy hair, expensive dress. I just wanted to say, you're very inspiring. The way you let him go so he could be happy. Not many women would be that selfless. Selfless. As if I'd had a choice. I needed air. The bar in the West Wing was quieter, softer lighting. A man sat alone near the end of the counter, scrolling through his phone. Dark hair, tailored suit, an aura of controlled stillness. I slid onto a stool a few seats away. Ginger and lime cooler, the bartender suggested when I declined alcohol. Perfect. The man glanced up. Our eyes met briefly, dark, observant, before he returned to his screen, but something shifted in the air between us. A subtle awareness. Minutes passed. My drink arrived. I sipped it, letting the sharp ginger cut through the bitterness in my mouth. Bad party? His voice was low, with a faint roughness that made me think of expensive whiskey. I turned. He'd moved one stool closer, leaving just enough distance to remain polite. It's my ex-husband's engagement celebration, I said. So, yes. His eyebrows rose slightly. You came to your ex-husband's engagement party. When you say it like that, it sounds irrational. Is it? I thought of Zaza's text, of needing proof I was still here, still standing. I wanted to be evidence, I said slowly. That I survived. The corner of his mouth lifted. Did it work? I'm not sure. I studied him. Are you here for the celebration? In a manner of speaking, I find it convenient to be where people don't expect me. That was a non-answer if I'd ever heard one. You're not from his campaign team, I said. No. Family? No. Then you're gate crashing. The idea almost amused me. You could say that. His gaze slid to my untouched champagne. You don't drink? I used to, but I spent years on fertility medications. Alcohol was discouraged. Understanding dawned in his expression. The treatments didn't work? A short laugh escaped me. If they had, I wouldn't be here inspiring people with my selflessness. Something like anger flashed across his face, not at me, at the situation. May I? He nodded toward the stool between us. I hesitated, then nodded. He moved with controlled grace, settling beside me. We sipped our drinks in companionable silence for a moment. Do you regret it? He asked softly. The divorce, I considered. No, he stopped touching me long before the paperwork. The only thing I regret is how long it took me to admit I was alone. His fingers tapped once on the bar, a quiet sound. In my experience, people cling to arrangements long after they've turned poisonous. Walking away takes strength. My body walked away first, I said. He just followed. Your body is not the villain here. The certainty in his voice made my chest tight. Who are you? I asked. He seemed to weigh his options, then extended his hand. Thaejin. Most people call me Jay. His hand was warm, calloused in unexpected places, not a businessman's hands. Elaris, I said. Elaris. He tested my name like he was learning its shape. What do you do, Elaris, when you're not attending terrible parties? I work at a floral studio, I said. I make arrangements for people's happy occasions. Weddings, mostly. Ironic, right? Not ironic, he said. You help create beauty for others, even when yours was taken from you. That's resilient. No one had called me resilient in a long time. Brave, maybe. Inspiring, certainly, but resilient implied strength, not just survival. What do you do? I asked. I acquire things, he said. Businesses, mostly, failing ones. I tear them apart or rebuild them, depending on which saves more jobs. So you're a corporate raider with a conscience. His smile was brief but genuine. Something like that. We talked, really talked, about the pressure of expectations, the weight of other people's dreams, the strange loneliness of being surrounded by people who only saw what you represented, never who you were. He told me about growing up in Seoul, about a father who built an empire and then drank himself to death when it collapsed, about learning early that power without purpose was just noise. I told him about my mother's bougainvillea, about lists of baby names I'd eventually deleted, about the way clinical language had slowly replaced intimacy in my marriage. When the bartender announced last call, I was startled to realize 2 hours had passed. I should go, I said, though I didn't want to. Should you? He asked. Yes, before I do something inadvisable. Like what? I met his gaze. Like asking you to leave with me. The air between us sharpened. And if I said yes? He asked quietly. My heart hammered. Then I'd have to decide if I'm brave or just reckless. He stood, pulled out his wallet, and placed cash on the bar. Too much. Enough to cover both our drinks and then some. Let's find out together, he said. Chapter 4. The Choice. We didn't go to a hotel room. Instead, we walked. The night air was cool, the city quiet. In that way, it only gets past midnight. He offered me his jacket without asking. I accepted without protesting. Where are we going? I asked. Does it matter? I suppose not. We ended up at a 24-hour cafe on the edge of the arts district, all exposed brick and mismatched furniture. The barista barely looked up when we entered. We ordered tea, sat in a corner booth, and kept talking. He told me about the business he was currently dismantling, a shipping company that had been used as a front for smuggling, about how he'd bought it specifically to shut down the illegal operations and protect the legitimate workers. My father taught me that money is just a tool, he said. The question is what you're building with it. And what are you building? I asked. Exits, he said, for people trapped in systems that will destroy them. I studied his face, the faint scar near his temple, the tiredness around his eyes that spoke of too many late nights fighting battles most people would never know about. You're not really a corporate raider, I said. No, he admitted. I'm something messier. I move money around to keep dangerous people from using it dangerously. I buy silence and cooperation. I make problems disappear. That sounds illegal. Sometimes it is, he said. I won't lie to you about that. Most women would have left, should have left. Instead, I asked, why are you telling me this? Because I don't want you to find out later and feel deceived, he said, and because I'm tired of being careful. The cafe hummed quietly around us. The barista wiped down the counter. Outside, a couple walked past, holding hands. I spent 10 years being measured, I said. Hormone levels, follicle counts, embryo quality, everything reduced to numbers. And none of it mattered because my body was the problem. I took a shaky breath. But right now, sitting here with you, I don't feel like a problem. I feel like a person. His hand moved across the table, stopping just short of mine. An invitation, not a demand. I closed the distance. His fingers curled around mine. I have to tell you something, he said. I'm only in this city for 3 more weeks. Then I leave for Seoul. There's a situation there that needs my attention, and I'll be gone for at least 6 months. My heart sank. Oh. So if this, he gestured between us, is something you want to explore, it has an expiration date. I want you to know that up front. 3 weeks, I repeated. Yes. I should have pulled my hand back, Should have said thank you for the honesty. Goodbye, good luck. Instead, I said, then we shouldn't waste time. Chapter 5. 3 weeks. We fell into a rhythm. He'd pick me up after my shifts at the floral studio in his sleek black car. We'd go to quiet restaurants, late-night food stalls, art galleries after hours, places where we could talk without performance. He met Zaza on day 5. She pulled me aside immediately. "That man looks at you like you're the only person in the room," she whispered. "Where did you find him?" "At my ex's engagement party," I said. "Poetic," she declared. "Keep him." But I couldn't keep him. We both knew that. On day 7, he took me to his temporary apartment, a furnished rental with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. It was sparse, impersonal, a space for someone passing through. "I don't do this," I said, standing in his living room. "Casual." "Neither do I," he replied. "Then what is this?" He crossed to me slow enough that I could step back. I didn't. "This is 3 weeks of being honest," he said. "No promises beyond that. But while we're here completely." When he kissed me, it wasn't rushed or desperate. It was thorough, deliberate, as if he were memorizing the shape of my mouth. My body, accustomed to clinical touches and cold silence, flared to life. That night, he learned every scar on my abdomen from laparoscopic surgeries, pressing his lips to each one as if sealing them. He asked permission before every touch, adjusted when I tensed, waited when I needed to breathe. "You're beautiful," he said, and it sounded like fact rather than flattery. Afterward, lying in his bed with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, I felt something dangerous bloom in my chest. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't what?" he asked, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my shoulder. "Don't make me fall for you when you're leaving." His hand stilled. "Elaris? I know it's only 3 weeks. I agreed to that." I turned to face him. "But I need you to know it's already too late for me, so please don't be careful. Don't hold back. Give me something real to remember." His eyes darkened, then he kissed me again, and this time there was something raw in it, something that felt like a confession. We spent our days being honest in ways I'd never been with anyone. I told him about the night I'd locked myself in the bathroom and swallowed an entire bottle of prenatal vitamins, as if overdosing on folic acid could somehow force my body to cooperate. He told me about finding his father's body, about the empty bottles, and the note that said simply, "I'm tired." I showed him the deleted folder on my phone where I'd kept baby name lists. He read them all. "Nyreen," he said softly. "That's beautiful. It means she of light in my mother's language." "If I ever have a daughter," he said, "and if the mother agrees, I'd want to use that name." The casual way he said it, "if I ever have a daughter," made my breath catch. On day 14, we had our first fight. I'd made an offhand comment about his work, asking if he ever worried about making things worse instead of better. He'd gone quiet in that dangerous way, then accused me of not understanding the complexity of what he did. I'd snapped back that I understood complexity just fine. I'd spent a decade navigating the complexity of a failing marriage while everyone blamed my failing body. We'd both said things that landed wrong. He'd left. I'd cried on Zaza's couch, convinced it was over. He came back 3 hours later with takeout and an apology. "I was defensive," he said, "because you were right. I do worry. Every day. And hearing you voice it made it real." "I'm sorry too," I said. "I was projecting." "We both were," he agreed. We ate cold noodles on my apartment floor and promised to fight better next time. There was a next time, and a time after that, We learned each other's sore spots, the places where old wounds hadn't quite healed, but we also learned how to apologize, how to sit in discomfort without running, how to choose each other even when it was easier not to. On day 19, I woke up before him and watched him sleep. His face was softer in rest, younger, less burdened. I was in love with him. Fully, stupidly, inconveniently in love, and in 2 days he'd be on a plane to Seoul. Chapter 6. Departure. On our last night, he took me to the rooftop of his building. He'd arranged it somehow. Blankets, pillows, a portable heater, fairy lights strung between the ventilation units. The city sprawled below us, a constellation of light and life. "You did all this?" I asked. "I had help," he admitted. "But yes." We lay on our backs staring at the sky. No stars visible through the light pollution, but it didn't matter. "I don't want to do the thing where we promise to stay in touch," I said. "The texting that gets less frequent, the calls that become awkward. I don't want to watch this fade." "What do you want?" he asked. "I want to remember it exactly like this," I said. Perfect and whole, before distance and time turned it into something sad. He was quiet for a long moment. "What if I asked you to come with me?" he said finally. My heart stopped. "What?" He turned onto his side, propping himself up on one elbow. "Come to Seoul, not forever, just for a few months. See if this thing between us can survive outside of this bubble." "Jay, I know it's insane," he said. "I know you have your job, your life, your family, but I also know that I've never felt like this about anyone, and I'm not ready to let it end because of geography." I stared at him. "I can't just leave." "Why not?" "Because," I fumbled for reasons. "My apartment, my job, Zaza." "Your apartment is a month-to-month lease. Lindy would hold your position. I already asked her." At my shocked look, he added, "I didn't pressure her. I just asked if she'd consider it hypothetically. And Zaza told me yesterday that if I didn't at least ask you, she'd hunt me down herself." "You talked to Zaza about this?" "I talked to everyone who matters to you about this," he said, "because I'm serious. I want you to come with me. I want to see if we can build something real." Tears burned my eyes. "What if it doesn't work?" "Then at least we'll know," he said, "and I'll pay for your flight home. No questions, no guilt." "You have an answer for everything," I said. "I've been planning this speech for a week," he admitted. I laughed through the tears. "This is crazy." "Yes. I barely know you." "You know me better than most people I've known for years," he said. He was right. In 3 weeks, we'd excavated more truth than I'd shared with Kovrin in 10 years. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Me too," he said. "But I'm more scared of spending the rest of my life wondering what if." I thought of my tiny apartment with its peeling paint, of the floral studio where I made arrangements for other people's joy, of the divorce decree sitting in a folder on my counter, of the life I'd been living, small, careful, contained. "Okay," I said. "Okay? Okay, I'll come with you." His smile was sunlight breaking through clouds. He kissed me like I'd given him something precious. "You won't regret this," he murmured against my mouth. "I might," I said, "but I'd regret not trying even more." Chapter 7. Seoul. Seoul was overwhelming. The noise, the density, the rapid-fire Korean I couldn't follow. Thaejin's apartment was in Gangnam, all clean lines and modern furniture so different from my cluttered rooftop studio. He'd set up a room for me, my own space, he'd insisted, in case I needed distance. It had a large window overlooking the Han River and a desk with fresh flowers. "Lindy sent care instructions," he said. "Apparently you're notorious for killing plants." "My fern survived," I protested. "Your fern thrives on neglect." The first week was an adjustment. He worked long hours, disappearing into meetings I wasn't part of. I explored the neighborhood, got lost repeatedly, learned to order coffee in stumbling Korean. I missed Zaza, missed Lindy, missed understanding what people were saying around me. But every evening he'd come home and ask about my day, really ask, like my answer mattered. We cooked together, him teaching me Korean dishes, me butchering the pronunciation of ingredients. We watched movies with subtitles. We talked about everything and nothing. On day 12 in Seoul, I woke up nauseous. At first, I blamed it on the unfamiliar food. But when it happened 3 days in a row, accompanied by exhaustion and tender breasts, my heart started hammering for a different reason. No, it wasn't possible. Was it? I'd been off birth control since the divorce. The hormones had interfered with the fertility treatments, and I'd never bothered going back on. But I'd also been told for years that natural conception was unlikely. Extremely unlikely. The pharmacy was 2 blocks away. I walked there in a daze, bought 3 different brands of pregnancy tests, and walked back. Thaejin was at work. The apartment was silent. I took all 3 tests. 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines. I sat on the bathroom floor staring at the sticks arranged on the counter like evidence at a crime scene. Pregnant, after 10 years, after all the treatments, the procedures, the devastation. My body had done what it was supposedly incapable of in a foreign country with a man I'd known for less than 2 months. I started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. When Thaejin came home, he found me still on the bathroom floor, tests clutched in my hand. Elaris? His voice was sharp with concern. What's wrong? I held up the tests. He stared at them, at me, back at the tests. Is that? I'm pregnant, I whispered. The color drained from his face. For one terrible second, I thought he'd walk away. Instead, he dropped to his knees beside me. You're pregnant, he repeated like he was testing the words. I know it's not what we planned. I know it's terrible timing. I know. He kissed me, cutting off my spiral. When we talked about that baby name, he said, pulling back, Nyreen. I wasn't being hypothetical. I was already hoping. My breath caught. What? I was already hoping, he repeated, that somehow, someday, you and I would have a child. I didn't think it would happen like this. But I'm not sorry that it did. You're not? Elaris, he cupped my face in his hands. I spent 3 weeks falling in love with you. I asked you to come to Seoul because I wanted a future with you. This, he glanced at the tests, is terrifying and unexpected and perfect. I might be a terrible mother, I said. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I, he said. We'll figure it out together. Your work can adjust, he said firmly. You and this baby are more important than any meeting. I searched his face for doubt, for hesitation, found only certainty. I love you, I said. The words tumbled out, unplanned. I know it's fast. I know. I love you too, he said. Have since about day 10, maybe earlier. We sat on the bathroom floor of his Seoul apartment, holding each other while the magnitude of it sank in. Chapter 8. The Leak. The headline appeared 3 weeks later. I was at a cafe near the apartment, attempting to read a Korean novel with a dictionary app, when my phone exploded with notifications. Councilman hails ex-wife pregnant. Sources say infidelity occurred during marriage. My hands went numb. I clicked the article. There was a photo of me and Thaejin at a restaurant, his hand on my back, both of us smiling. We'd thought we were being careful. We'd been wrong. The article was vicious. Sources close to the councilman reveal that Elaris Nyambe, who claimed infertility throughout their marriage, is now pregnant with another man's child. The timing has led to speculation that infidelity may have begun before the divorce was finalized. Councilman Hale is reportedly devastated. My phone rang. Zaza. Elle, have you seen it? I'm reading it now. That absolute bastard! Her voice shook with rage. He leaked this. It has his PR team's fingerprints all over it. She was right. The language, the devastated framing, the implication of betrayal. Kovrin was reshaping the narrative to make himself the victim. I need to call Jay, I said. He already knows, Zaza said. He called me 10 minutes ago asking if you were safe. I hung up and dialed Thaejin. He answered on the first ring. Where are you? His voice was controlled but tight. Café Orium, the one near... I know it. Stay there. I'm sending Minjun. Don't leave without him. Minjun arrived in minutes. One of Thaejin's security team, a former military officer who treated every situation like a tactical operation. He escorted me to the car without a word. Back at the apartment, Thaejin was on the phone speaking rapid Korean. When he saw me, he ended the call immediately. Are you okay? He asked. No, I said honestly. He made it sound like I cheated, like the baby isn't, like I'm some kind of... He's trying to control the narrative, Thaejin said. We need to respond. How? By confirming I got pregnant right after the divorce? That makes me look reckless. No, he said. It makes you look human. A woman who met someone after her marriage ended and chose to be happy. His base won't see it that way, I said. They'll see a barren wife who magically got pregnant as soon as she left. They'll say I was the problem, or that I lied, or they'll see a man who threw away a decade-long marriage and is now scrambling to blame you for moving on, Thaejin interrupted. Let me handle this. How? His expression hardened. I know things about Councilman Hale, about the fertility clinics he pressured you into, the doctors he influenced, the medications he insisted on against medical advice. My stomach dropped. How do you know that? Because I looked into him, Thaejin said bluntly. The night you told me about your marriage, I wanted to know what kind of man could make a woman as strong as you feel small. You investigated my ex-husband? Yes. Part of me should have been angry. The rest of me was just tired. What did you find? I asked. He pulled out a folder, actual paper, not digital. Inside were medical records, emails, financial transactions. He increased your medication dosages against Dr. Cade's recommendations, Thaejin said, multiple times. She documented her objections, but he went over her head to a clinic administrator he donated money to. I felt sick. He poisoned me? Not intentionally, Thaejin said, but he prioritized results over your health repeatedly, and when it didn't work, he blamed you publicly while hiding his role privately. I sank onto the couch. Can we use this? We can, he said, but it's your choice. Releasing these means exposing everything, the full extent of what you went through, the medical details, his manipulation. Your life becomes public in ways you can't take back. And if we don't release it, then his narrative stands, Thaejin said. You become the woman who betrayed her devoted husband. I thought of the baby growing inside me, of the questions they'd ask someday about their parents, about how we met, about the stories told. Release it, I said, all of it. Chapter 9, The War. The counter-story dropped 48 hours later. Thaejin's media contact, a journalist who'd built a career on exposing political corruption, published a comprehensive investigation. Medical records, anonymized but traceable, emails, expert testimony about the dangers of over-aggressive fertility treatments. The headline, Councilman Hale pressured ex-wife into dangerous treatments, sources say. The article was careful, factual, devastating. It painted a picture of a man so desperate for an heir that he'd risked his wife's health, then discarded her when she couldn't deliver. Public opinion shifted. Not entirely. Korean had his defenders, people who insisted the media was biased, that I was vindictive. But enough people saw through it. Enough people looked at the timeline, divorce finalized, then pregnancy weeks later, and saw a woman who'd finally escaped, not a cheater who'd betrayed. My phone rang constantly. News outlets wanted interviews, strangers sent messages of support and vitriol in equal measure. Thaejin fielded everything, his team's screening calls and threats with military efficiency. "You need to stay out of sight," he said, "just for a few weeks until this dies down." "I'm not hiding," I said. "You're 7 weeks pregnant and being harassed online," he countered. "That's not hiding. That's protecting our child." Our child. The way he said it with such casual certainty made my chest tight. "Fine," I relented, "but I'm not staying silent forever." "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I'm asking you to let the story breathe before you add your voice." He was right, as much as I hated it. We retreated further into privacy. Thaejin worked from home more, his team coming to us instead of the other way around. I started feeling the pregnancy more acutely, the nausea, the exhaustion, the strange food aversions. Thaejin learned quickly what I could stomach and what made me run for the bathroom. One evening, I found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m., making ginger tea from scratch. "You should be sleeping," I said. "So should you," he replied. "But you're not, because the baby decided tonight's the night for acrobatics." I smiled despite myself. "It's too early for movement." "Tell that to your insomnia." He poured the tea, added honey, brought it to me on the couch. "Jay," I said as he sat beside me, "what happens after this? After the media frenzy dies down?" "What do you want to happen?" he asked. I paused, searching for the right words. "I want us to build something real, not just reacting to crises, but actually planning a life." "Like what?" he asked. "Like where we'll live when the baby comes, like whether I go back to work or stay home or find something new, like what we tell people we are." "What do you want to tell them?" he asked carefully. I met his gaze. "I want to tell them we're together, really together, not just circumstantially." "Elaris," he set down his mug. "I was going to ask you to marry me." My breath caught. "What?" "Not today," he said quickly. "Not in the middle of this mess. But yes, I was planning to ask. I've been planning it since the day you took those tests." "You don't have to marry me because I'm pregnant," I said. "I want to marry you because I love you," he corrected. The pregnancy just made me realize I don't want to wait. Life's too short and too unpredictable. "Ask me," I whispered. He blinked. "Now?" "Now." A smile spread across his face, slow and genuine. He slid off the couch, kneeling on the apartment floor in sweatpants and a t-shirt. No ring, no planning. "Elaris Nyambe," he said, taking my hands. "Will you marry me? Not because of headlines or babies or timing, but because I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Because I love you." Tears blurred my vision. "Yes." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. "We'll do it right," he said. "A real wedding. Your family, your friends, not some rushed courthouse thing." "I don't need a big wedding," I said. "I know," he said, "but I want to give you one anyway. I want to stand in front of everyone who matters and choose you publicly." "Even with all the attention that'll bring?" I asked. "Especially with that," he said. "Let them see I'm proud to marry you." Chapter 10. Confrontation. The wedding planning became a welcome distraction. Zaza flew out to Seoul, took one look at the apartment, and declared we needed more color and less minimalism. "This place looks like a magazine spread," she said. "Where's the personality?" "It's growing," Thaejin replied, gesturing to my plants now scattered on every surface. "Fair point," Zaza conceded. "We planned a small ceremony, just family and close friends. My parents would come. Thaejin's mother had passed years ago, but he had cousins, friends, business associates who'd become family. But first we had to deal with Kovren. He requested a meeting." "Absolutely not," Thaejin said when the email arrived. "I need to do this," I said. "I need to face him, close this chapter. He doesn't deserve your time." "It's not about what he deserves," I said. "It's about what I need." After much argument, we agreed. A meeting in a neutral location with Thaejin present, time limited. We met at an upscale hotel restaurant. Kovren arrived alone, looking thinner than I remembered, older around the eyes. "Elaris," he said, standing when we approached. "Kovren," I replied, my voice steady. We sat, tension thick enough to cut. "I wanted to apologize," he began. Thaejin's hand tightened on mine under the table. "For what, specifically?" I asked. Kovren shifted. "For how things ended, for the media attention, for my part in making you feel inadequate." "My part," Thaejin repeated quietly, danger in his voice. "I reviewed the medical records," I said, ignoring Thaejin's warning look. "The ones showing you increased my medication dosages against Dr. Cade's advice multiple times." Kovren paled. "I was trying to help." "You were trying to get results," I corrected. "At my expense. And when it didn't work, you blamed my body instead of acknowledging your interference might have made things worse." "That's not—" "It is," I interrupted, "and you know it. That's why you're here, because the truth came out and now your political career is suffering." He flinched. "My polling numbers have dropped significantly." "Good," I said simply. "I didn't come here to fight," he said. "I came to ask if there's any way we could present a united front. Tell the media we've both moved on, that there's no ill will." "No," I said. "Elaris, please. This scandal is destroying everything I've built." "You destroyed it yourself," Thaejin cut in, his voice ice cold, "by prioritizing your ambition over your wife's well-being, by leaking her pregnancy to the press, by painting yourself as the victim when you were the architect of her pain." "I loved her," Kovren said, sounding almost desperate. "You loved the idea of her," I said. "The perfect political wife who'd give you photogenic children. You never loved me, the actual person with fears and limits and needs." Silence fell. "I did try," Kovren said quietly. "In the beginning." "I know," I said, and I felt some of my anger soften. "I think we both tried. But we were trying to force something that was never going to work, and instead of admitting that, we both held on too long." "I'm sorry," he said, and this time it sounded genuine. "For all of it. For the treatments, for the coldness, for going to the press. I was angry and hurt, and I lashed out." "Apology noted," I said. "But I won't help you rebuild your image. You'll have to do that on your own." He nodded slowly, stood. I hope you're happy. With him. With the baby." "I am," I said. He looked at Thaejin. "Take care of her." "I will," Thaejin replied. "Every day." Kovren left. I exhaled shakily. Thaejin pulled me into his arms. "You were incredible," he murmured. "I was terrified," I admitted. "Terrified and incredible aren't mutually exclusive," he said. Chapter 11. Beginning. The wedding took place on a clear afternoon in late spring. We'd chosen a garden venue outside Seoul, cherry blossoms in full bloom, mountains visible in the distance. everything soft and alive. My parents cried. Zaza served as my maid of honor and threatened Thaejin with bodily harm if he ever hurt me. Lindy sent flowers from her studio, an arrangement so beautiful, people kept asking where she'd gotten them. I wore a simple dress, ivory silk, empire waist to accommodate my growing belly, no train. Comfortable, mine. Thaejin wore a dark suit, his hair styled back, his expression nervous until he saw me walking toward him. Then he smiled, and the nervousness vanished. The ceremony was short. We'd written our own vows. Elaris, Thaejin said, his voice carrying across the quiet garden, you taught me that strength isn't about never breaking, it's about choosing to rebuild. You took a life that tried to define you by what you couldn't do and rewrote it entirely. I promise to spend the rest of our lives making sure you never feel small again. I promise to choose you every day, even on the hard ones. I promise to be the partner you deserve. My turn. Jay, I said, my voice shaking slightly, you saw me at my lowest and didn't try to fix me. You just stood beside me. You gave me space to be broken and messy and still showed up. You made me believe I was worth choosing. I promise to be honest, even when it's scary. I promise to fight with you, not against you. I promise to build a life with you that's big enough for all our broken pieces and all our hope. We exchanged rings, simple bands, no diamonds. When the officiant pronounced us married, Thaejin kissed me like we were the only two people in the world. The reception was joyful, chaotic, perfect. My father gave a speech about resilience. Zaza told embarrassing childhood stories. Thaejin's business partner, a stoic man named Dae-jung, got drunk and serenaded us in Korean. As the evening wound down, Thaejin and I escaped to a quiet corner of the garden. How are you feeling? He asked, his hand resting gently on my belly. Happy, I said. Tired, a little overwhelmed, but happy. The baby's been quiet today, he observed. Too much excitement, I said. They're resting. Smart kid, he said. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching our friends and family laugh and dance. Do you think we'll be good at this? I asked. Parenting? No idea, he said honestly, but I think we'll figure it out together. That's what you always say. It's always true, he replied. Epilogue. The rooftop. 8 weeks later. Snow from the rooftop garden bit into my bare feet as I stared at the 2 pink lines. Wait! No. That was months ago. Now I stood on a different rooftop, the private terrace of our Seoul apartment, wrapped in Thaejin's coat, watching snow fall over the city. Elaris, Thaejin's voice came from behind me. Why are you crying? I turned. He stood in the doorway, concern etched on his face. I was just thinking, I said, about that night at the Meridian, when I didn't know who you were, when all of this was impossible. He crossed to me, pulled me into his arms. Nothing about you is impossible, he said. My hand moved to my belly, now round and obvious under the coat. Inside the baby, our daughter, we'd learned at the ultrasound, kicked strongly. She's active tonight, I said. She's her mother's daughter, he replied. We should go inside, I said. It's freezing. In a minute, he said. I want to remember this. You, the city, the snow, this moment before everything changes. Everything's already changed, I pointed out. True, he said. But in a few weeks, there'll be 3 of us. I want to remember when it was just you and me and her inside you. I leaned back against him, his arms wrapping securely around me and our daughter. Below, the city hummed with life. Traffic flowed, lights glittered, people moved through their own stories, some tragic, some joyful, most somewhere in between. 10 years ago, I'd believed I was broken. 5 months ago, I'd signed away a decade of my life. 2 months ago, I'd stood in this man's arms and promised him forever. Now, standing on this rooftop with snow in my hair and a baby doing somersaults in my belly, I understood something fundamental. I had never been barren. I had been dormant, waiting, not for the right treatments or the right timing, but for the right soil, the right light, for someone who saw me not as a project to fix or a dream to fulfill, but as a person worth choosing every day, even on the hard ones. "What are you thinking?" Thaejin asked softly. "That I'm glad I went to the party," I said. "Glad I sat next to a stranger at a bar. Glad I was brave enough to say yes to 3 weeks, then to Seoul, then to forever. I'm glad you said yes too," he murmured, pressing a kiss to my temple. Inside the apartment, my phone buzzed with a message from Zaza. "How's my niece treating you? Normal? Ordinary? Beautiful?" "Come on," I said, tugging Thaejin toward the door. "Let's get warm. I want to call Zaza and eat something terrible for me." "Your cravings have gotten creative," he observed. "Blame your daughter." "Our daughter," he corrected, smiling. "Our daughter," I agreed. We stepped inside together, leaving the snow and the city and the old ghost behind. The past would always be part of my story, the pain, the treatments, the years of waiting and hoping and breaking, but it didn't define the ending anymore. I did, and I chose this. A man who loved. My scars, a daughter who kicked like a fighter, a life I'd built from the rubble of old dreams. 3 weeks had turned into forever, and I regretted nothing. The end. The story is for everyone who's been told they're not enough, for those who've rebuilt themselves after being broken, for anyone who found love in unexpected places and chose courage over comfort. You are not defined by what you couldn't do. You are defined by what you chose to build afterward. If Elaris's journey touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below telling us what moment resonated with you most. Have you ever felt like Elaris, told you weren't enough, only to prove them wrong? Do you think she made the right choice going to Seoul with Jay after just 3 weeks? If this story made you feel something, hope, anger, joy, or tears, please hit that like button. It helps us know what stories matter to you. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. We share tales of resilience, unexpected love, and second chances every week. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't defined by what others say about them. Sometimes one story can change someone's entire day. Until next time, remember, you are not broken. You are becoming.